How about now? Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? Do do do. Waiting to see if that worked. Everyone, sound off if you can hear me. There's a bit of delay on my end. All right. Okay, so let's see. Hello, sorry about the technical difficulties. Hello to Annoyed SFX, Gothic Fucker, Jennifer Goupil, Elizabeth Miller, and Donna, and everyone else joining. Feel free to please use the chat throughout, talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to be checking throughout the stream and I'll try to respond to all the comments, but mostly I'm going to be working on a painting. So if this is your first time tuning in, this is Art Autopsy. This is a bi-weekly live art event where I start a brand new painting, and I encourage everyone at home to make art right alongside me, follow along. It's just a good excuse to come back every 2 weeks and make some art. And if you do that every 2 weeks, you're eventually going to build up a cool body of work. And yeah, anyway, it's just a fun time. So thank you all for joining me. And let's see what we got going on here. I got a few announcements I want to talk about first. But first and foremost, I just want to say a huge thank you to my patrons who support me over on Patreon. That's Jennifer Goupil, Tango 14, Travis Carney, Anthony Ferraro, Rachel, Derek Justice, Sea of Dead Faces, Violet Gray, Jill, Archangel, and Charlie Wall. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. And if you're not on my Patreon yet, we also have a free tier. So if you just want to keep up to date with like announcements for events like this, feel free to join up with the free tier. And if you want to support a little more and get some more behind the scenes action and get more updates as to what's going on with me in the artistic realm, we have other tiers available. Okay, so let me get through a few announcements and then we will get into making some art. First off, I just wanted to tell you about this is a new movie. It just came out on video on demand and in selected theaters last Friday. This is a movie that I was the visual effects supervisor on, so I did all of the digital work on this. It is mostly a practical effects film, but I did some cool enhancements here and there with the digital stuff. Me and my team that works under me, really talented group of fellas, and really loved the movie. I got to watch it recently, the final cut, and really loved it. I want to tell you guys about it. Now, it's on video on demand right now, but I think as of tomorrow, it's hitting the regular streaming. I believe probably Paramount Plus, since it's a Paramount movie. So check it out. If you like dark, fucked up movies, this is for you. Next announcement. This came out a couple weeks ago. This is a musical collaboration that I did with the band Cellmod, and it's called Stress Test. It's out absolutely everywhere that you consume music digitally. So check it out if you haven't already. I had a lot of fun working on this. Juan from Cellmod is such a great guy, and we collaborated years ago. He did a remix for a System Sen song, and I was very happy to get back in the studio and record some vocals on a song that he wrote the music to. So check it out. And Cellmod is a band that not a lot of people know of yet, but they absolutely should. He's doing great stuff. So I encourage you to give Cellmod a follow on your favorite music platform. Okay, 2 more announcements, and then we're going to get into showing some viewer art. And then we're going to start painting. So I just did an interview with Chet Zar on his Dark Art Society podcast. And this is available right now wherever you consume podcasts. I recommend watching the video version on YouTube because then you can see William, who is my cat. William gets involved in the interview. So if you're just listening to the audio, you don't get any cat action. But so check it out. Chet is just such a wonderful dude, and he makes such great art, and it was such a pleasure to sit down and talk to him about all things creative, and just really honored to be on the podcast. So check it out. Another final announcement here is I've recently done an update to clintcarney.com. This is just my main website. So the main things that I added were just a link to my YouTube. So if you ever need to find my YouTube channel in a pinch, the link is right there on the website. The Patreon's linked right there. And then I added a brand new storefront. And in that storefront, there's some new merch that has never been available before. There's some new art prints. There's some original paintings that I've created during the Art Autopsy streams available. There's some left, so if you want to pick up a painting or a print, or the other usual suspects are there. Music, my movie Dry Blood, all that stuff is there as well. And I'm going to continue to add new products throughout time eternal. So all right, that's it for all the promo BS. Let's talk about some artwork from you fine folks. So if you are making art at home along with me, I highly encourage you, please email me your artwork to clintcarneycreates@gmail.com, and I'll feature it on an upcoming live stream. So let's get into it. I'll show you what some of my awesome viewers created during the last live stream. Okay, this one comes from Liz, who I believe is in the chat right now, and this is just simply wonderful, incredibly detailed ink drawing of this insect. Liz, if you wouldn't mind, tell us in the chat a little bit about this piece. It's just so cool. I'm sure everyone would love to hear more. And in that regard, I didn't think it until I was already had this set up. But in the future, if you're submitting art and you want me to also put a link to your socials while we talk about your art, also include that in your email to me. But in the meantime, if I'm featuring your art right now, please feel free to post your Instagram link or whatever you want in the chat so everyone else can see it and get a feel for your artwork. They can see more of it and so forth. But yeah, absolutely love this piece. The next viewer submission is from Jennifer Goupil, and this is just an amazing fantasy style painting right here. I really love it. The dragon, the floating islands, everything. Just so cool. And Jennifer has been watching these streams since the beginning. And yeah, really happy to see just more amazing work from her. So yeah, fantastic job. Just love it. Okay, now I want to show you guys what I created during the last live stream. So I just wrapped it up last night. Again, if you're still new to this, I try to make as much progress as I can during the live stream, but inevitably, the live streams usually go 2 hours, sometimes 3 if I'm feeling up to it. But it usually takes me 10 hours or more to finish a painting like this that I'm about to start. So my goal is then to just get whatever painting I start during Art Autopsy finished before the next one. So without further ado, this is the painting that I started at the last Art Autopsy. And here it is. Let me adjust the camera just a bit so you can see. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I'll get it in close so we can see some details. We've got this cat dude riding a shark hammerhead, and this goldfish crab lady walking her puppers right there. And then there's this little crab talking shit in the foreground. They are unaware that the shark and cat are about to come and attack the ever-loving shit out of them. So that's the painting. Hope you guys enjoy it. One other thing I'm going to show you about this painting. I always love the way that the palette looks after I finish a painting, because it's just a clump of all these colors that I used in the painting. And so the palette for this I just did on a piece of cardboard so that I could preserve it with the painting. So you see right here, this is the palette. So if anyone ends up buying this painting sometime in the future, they're also going to get the palette with it. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm just going to move this painting out of the way so I don't splatter it with the paint from the new piece. Let me just check in with the chat real quick. Okay. All right. So this is a board. It's a pre-gessoed board. Instead of canvas, sometimes I do canvas, sometimes I do the board. The board's a lot smoother. That piece that I just showed you was also done on board. And what I've done is I've pre-toned it with like a greenish gray just to give me like a middle value tone. So then when I start painting, you're not having to stare at the bright white of the canvas. It's more interesting, helps with the painting. You'll get the point. But today we're going to do something a little different than we've done in the past. So that last painting that I showed you I started as a sketch in my sketchbook, and from there it turned into that painting, or a couple sketches I combined into the one painting. But this time I'm going to do a bit of a still life, kind of a portrait / still life. I'm actually going to take a mask that I sculpted, and I'm going to do a painting of that mask. I thought it would be fun. I've got the painting set up, I've got the mask set up just off camera, but as I paint, I'm going to show you guys the mask, and there it is in all of its glory, so that you can see as the painting comes together. You can check my work against the reference. You can see how truly sloppy I really am. And yeah, I thought it would be fun. This is kind of a fun, ghastly mask, and I really love the way this turned out. It's an older sculpture of mine, but originally it was a resin bust, but I decided to make it a latex mask, and I love it, so I just wanted to paint it. Oh, and by the way, I should say all of my masks are also available on clintcarney.com. So, without further ado, oh, and thank you all for the compliments on the painting there in the chat. I appreciate you guys. So yeah, let's get to painting. Yeah, Gene. His name is Gangrene Gene. Appropriately titled. Okay. So what I'm going to do to start with, oh man, I failed at getting water ready. To start with, I'm going to just do the underpainting in acrylic for the sake of let me switch back to the view real quick. For the sake of the live stream, I like to do the underpaintings in acrylic just to get more progress done while you guys are watching. So think of the acrylic part of this process as the sketch. Instead of sketching in pencil or whatever, I just do it right in paint. So that's what we're going to do right now. And yeah, I'm going to squeeze out some of this onto my palette. It's inevitably going to make some farting noises, but trust that it is the paint. Okay. And then yeah, I'm going to check in on the chat with you guys periodically throughout the process. But please talk amongst yourselves too, because I'm going to be mostly focused on this painting. So here we go. First, what I'm doing is I'm on my palette. I don't have enough cameras to also show my palette, but I'm just thinning out some black paint, and I'm just going to start sketching in the basic outline of this dude. Now, the reference that you guys are looking at is actually just a photograph that I took from my my vantage point. So it's that mask, what I'm looking at from where I'm sitting, but the angle that I'm actually seeing it from as I sit here right now and paint may be slightly off, but you'll get the point. Okay, so automatically I did not give him enough headroom, which sucks. So watch this. I just take some of this gray paint. Look at that, magic eraser. Look, there is nothing that you can do with paint. There's no mistake that you can make with paint that you cannot just fix, right? Just cover it up. And I'm not being precious about covering all the lines here. I'm just getting them out of the way, getting most of them out of the way. Okay, let's reassess where we want the headroom to be. I want to give them a little bit of headroom, probably, there we go, that's better. Don't hold me to this, but what I might end up doing on this piece is also give him a little bit of a body, so it's not just like a portrait of the mask, but rather a portrait of the character that the mask, a portrait of the character as like a living thing. So I'll probably give him some shoulders and all that stuff as well. Probably, we'll see how it goes. And I'm just eyeballing this, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different methods that people use to get their image onto a canvas. Myself, I love just, the drawing part of it, right? And trying to, oftentimes just work from imagination, or if I'm working from a reference like I am right now, just try to hone my skills and get better at transferring what I see onto the canvas. It's always a work in progress, I'm not perfect at it, but every time you do it, you get a little better. And as you'll see as I go through this painting here, it's going to start out super rough and shitty, and I'll keep painting. If you watched this before, you know what I always say: keep painting until you don't hate it. So that's what we are going to endeavor to do. We're going to endeavor to do something cool. So the idea with Gene here is that this eyeball here has fallen out of its socket, but his skin had started to slough off, or however you say that word, and his lip was hanging loose and just so happened to catch his eyeball as it was sliding down his face. So he's quite gnarly. This one just makes a really gnarly mask. Really love this little character. He's so fun, if you like that sort of thing. And again, periodically, I'm going to check back with the chat. So if you guys have any questions for me or anything, feel free to include them. And if usually the chat doesn't get too crazy, so I usually don't miss too many of them. But if I do miss any, you can always feel free to ask me more than once. So yeah, again, at this stage with the acrylic, this is just a sketch. I'm just figuring out what it's going to look like, setting some values. The difference between the light and the shadow. I'm trying to figure that out now, it's just exploring. Figuring out how it's going to go. So I'm just starting with this sketch, and then once I get it basically, this outline down to something I think is passable, then I'm going to go in with some white, again, just acrylic on the sketch portion here, and start roughing in some highlights. And then once we get a decent black and white sketch done with the acrylic, we are going to switch over to oil paint and get into some color. The reason I chose this particular image this time is, well, one, I haven't done a portrait yet on these live streams, and I've got plenty of masks, so I thought, hey, why not do a mask portrait? And two, I was was on that on Chet Czar's podcast the other day, and I was wearing this exact same hat I'm wearing now, which is the Topstone Mummy. And Chet had, we were talking a bit about this. I can't remember if this part was in the interview or if it was just what we were talking about offline. But, he reminded me that those original catalogs for the Topstone masks were just that artwork for it, right? And you had to buy the mask blind just based on that illustration. And then when the mask showed up, it wasn't exactly what you thought it would be, because it's a three-dimensional object, and those particular masks were often a softer, thin rubber and that sort of thing. So I thought, hey, it would be cool to have that kind of, albeit in my style, but that kind of an illustration for my masks as well. And I thought, what, let's try it with one. Let's try it with one of my favorite ones that I've made in recent years, and if it works out, maybe I'll do more in the future. Okay, I mean, I'm already feeling this, it's starting to take shape, I mean, you can see versus my reference there, it's not exactly on, but again, I'm going to continue to form it as I go, and also that reference that you're looking at, the angle is slightly different from how I'm looking at this thing, so it is going to be a little off, but that's not what matters. What matters is the painting is its own work of art here. It doesn't have to be exactly as the reference, as long as you can see the painting and get the idea for what it is. So we are going to give him some shoulders here. Now, when I first did Gangrene Gene, he came out as a resin bust. I already said this before, but I'm repeating myself. But initially, Gene did not have hair. It's just the mask that has the hair. But he had a hood. Actually, let me click back over here. If you look behind me, yeah, there we go here. There's like the flush variant of the same sculpt. That one is called Skin Slip Skip. Different name, different paint job. But that one has the hood, and that was very similar to how he was initially. And but in the resin bust, he actually had a hoodie attached to him. It was like a bright red hoodie, which really made the green of the skin pop. And I know Jennifer, who is watching, has one of those resin busts in her collection. So I'm not, because this is more of an ad for the mask, or a representation of the mask, I'm not going to do the hoodie on it, but I probably will end up making his shirt that same red color, just to kind of tie it in there. And then we're going to do something fun in the background. I don't know what yet, but we're going to figure that out. And then let's see, periodically I've got to check the chat, check in on you guys. All right, Artar Mariano, I am probably mispronouncing that. Thank you for joining us and participating in the chat. I appreciate you. Andrew, let's see. Oh man, Andrew, thank you for joining. Yeah, it's crazy. It's been 5 years since Once Upon a Second Act. That is crazy. Yesterday was the 5-year anniversary. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, that heat has been just really gnarly. We're actually, for once, not doing too bad with it on the West Coast here. I'm in Los Angeles, or a suburb of LA, but I know all of my East Coast friends are really having a hard time with it. So hopefully it lets up. And I'm just kind of looking at the mask, and I'm looking for, kind of the brightest parts of it to hit in some bolder highlights. Again, this is all just sketchy bullshit. you'll see as we go, it's just going to come along further and further. And we're just going to throw in some nice white for his teeth. Of course, we're going to add detail in there. I'm just chunking in shapes right now, you know. That's how we do it. Now, if I were smart, I would have done some cool lighting on on the mask, you know, but I actually tried to set that up, but in order to control the lighting the way I would have wanted it, it would have had to be dark in the garage here where I'm painting, just to control the shadows, so I had to go for kind of more of a neutral lighting. So I'll try to add some of that back in as I go to make it a little more contrasty. But ultimately, I guess it's okay that it will be kind of a neutral lighting, just because it's more of a showcase piece to show off the mask. So, if any of you had already listened to the Dark Art Society podcast that I just did, you probably know some of what I'm about to say. But if you haven't, and so you're going to get it twice. But when I was a kid, I was really into Fangoria magazine. I still subscribe, by the way. And in the 80s and early 90s, there was a company that was making masks, who is still around now, but they're kind of more focused on Halloween decor these days, but called Distortions Unlimited. And they had just the gnarliest, bloodiest masks, and they would take out these ads in Fangoria, and I would just see these ads, and it's one of the main things that made me fall in love with masks was just seeing these ads for Distortions Unlimited. But they were pretty pricey. Well, for a little kid, I didn't have a job because, I was a kid. So I was able to, at one point in time, I saved up money probably from birthdays and Christmas and stuff, and I had my Uncle Bill take me to a shop in the valley here in LA. Doesn't exist anymore, but there was just a wonderful, awesome shop called Magic Emporium. And it was like a big warehouse-sized magic shop that just had just an amazing mask selection too. And all of those masks that I had seen inside of those Fangoria ads were at Magic Emporium. There was another shop in Northridge also, by the way, called Magic World, that also had a great mask selection. But now we're talking about Magic Emporium. And anyway, so I saved up as much money as I could, and I went there, and I found I was able to buy one. It was probably 25 or 30 bucks at the time, but for a little kid in the 80s or 90s, whenever that was a lot of money. And I bought a mask called Pierce a Vein, which is the Distortions Unlimited vampire that was out at the time. Just such a really cool sculpt. I actually did a painting of that mask, probably in 2005 or something. I sold it. I was trying to make money slinging art, so I had to sell it. But anyway, that was what got me hooked on Distortions. That was my favorite mask forever. It eventually, I probably didn't take as good a care of it as I should have, and the latex kind of rotted. But as an adult, I found a new copy on eBay and was able to buy it again. So now I have that one back in my collection. And now, even though most of those masks are out of production, I am on a mission to find as many of them that I can that were... Oh man, sorry, I'm recording this footage on my other camera and the memory card just ran out. Well, sorry. One moment, I guess I'm gonna have to rely on the live stream recording for that, because I'm not gonna waste time cleaning up the memory card while you guys are watching. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I've spent just like years trying to find these holy grail masks that I've been looking for. Um, this little puppet that's on top of the skeleton right here. This is also a Distortions Unlimited product, and that was, I believe, from '92 or '93. But they have another puppet that they made earlier that my brother has, which is even cooler than that one. So anyway, um, little backstory there. I'm just catching up with the chat real quick. Sorry, guys. Oh, Andrew still has the heart above his door. That's awesome. For those of you who don't know, there was a cool sculptural heart that we released as part of the promos for my album Once Upon a Second Act. That was sculpted by Jim Bonner, based on a painting by Mike Haffington. I'm actually, that's a good thing. The album artwork for that, I'm going to do a YouTube video soon on the creation of it, because it was a really interesting process. So look for that coming soon. Da, 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 da. Liz, thanks for listening to the podcast. Uh, Digging the vibe, I like the thought of lighting. Yeah, I mean, maybe maybe for a future, if I do another still life at some point, I'll spend more time lighting it. So, but for now, this will work. Um, Thanks, Donna. I'm glad you're showing your students. Awesome. Okay, let's get back to it here. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do for now, I don't know what the background's going to be yet, right? It's too early to say, but so that we can have just kind of a better, cleaner look at what we're doing with this painting, I'm just going to black out the background for now, right? And which will help refine the shape of his face. I already fucked it up, but that's all right. Apologies too if any children are watching, because I have a potty mouth. I'm trying to be better at that for the live streams, but it is a hard habit to break. I probably don't make much of an effort to break it, to be honest, but you know, okay. And I'm just going to throw just a little highlight on his shoulder here to differentiate from the background. And I'm just going to try to lay this background in as fast as possible, so you guys don't have to waste your precious time watching me just paint solid black. But anyway, yeah, man, that what do you call it? Magic Emporium shop in the Valley in Northridge was so cool as a kid. I wish, you know, this was in the days before everyone had a camera in their pocket, you know, on their cell phone. So I have no photographic evidence that this shop ever existed, and I've never seen anyone talk about it online. So one of these days I'm going to run into someone that knows this shop, and we can bond over it. It was such a cool thing. You know, there's not, maybe it's just where I live, and correct me if it's different in your neck of the woods, but magic shops don't seem to be a thing anymore. It certainly was. If you guys have seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure, if you're not familiar with the concept of a magic shop, that's exactly what it is. Pee-wee goes into the magic shop at the beginning of that film. It's where he gets like the gag chewing gum and all that stuff. It used to be a big thing in the 80s, you know, and less so in the 90s, but they were still around. Just shops that catered to magicians, I guess. And I mean, I guess magic was cool as a kid, but I was always more about the masks that they would have, because they all sold masks. Actually, the only one that I can think of that is left in Southern California, to the best of my knowledge, and I hope to be proven wrong, is there's a magic shop in Disneyland on Main Street, you know, in the actual park, and they also sold masks there. I imagine they still do. I haven't been in a while, but I should go back. Um, but they didn't have the distortion stuff. As far as I can remember, they were mostly carrying Don Post masks. I remember specifically there was a fantastic mask that, once again, I always wanted as a kid, but had to wait till I was an adult to buy it. But there was a mask called the Willies that the Disney Magic Shop always had, and it was just a mask made up of all these tiny little grotesque baby faces, and it's super creepy. I love it, and so I was happy that maybe 10 years ago or more, Don Post did a re-release of that mask, so I was able to pick up one of the newer copies. And in the mask world, that's just same molds. It's just a new pouring, so it's the exact same thing as the original. It just came out a little later. Okay, so he's looking. I mean, it's a start. It's a start. I still got some of this gray on my palette, so I'm just gonna use this, and I just want to refine this image a bit more right now. Oh man, I broke this brush. I've been breaking brushes left and right lately. I don't know why. I'm too rough when I clean them off and I snap them. And there goes that one, which was actually relatively a new brush, but not any longer. R.I.P. Okay. Anyway, what I was saying is I want to get as much of this done in black and white as I can in this acrylic process, so that way when we get into the color we can just kind of right away get into glazing, which again, if you have seen this stream before, you know all about glazing, but for those of you who haven't, that is the process by which you take thin layers of paint and you layer them on top of each other, and the thin layers allow the paint that came before to shine through. So you can really build up some cool dynamic textures and colors that way. So how this applies to what we're doing right now, this underpainting, as I mentioned earlier, is just establishing the values, right? The difference between the light and the shadow on the painting. And so once we get those locked in, if we get to a point where they are close, at least, as we start layering in color, those values will show through in the color. Now eventually, because I'm going to end up building up so many layers of paint, there won't be anything left of the acrylic sketch that you are going to see in the final piece. It's just going to be completely covered and layered over, but that's okay. It's still figuring out the lighting is so foundational for the way that I work. I just it's the way I prefer to work, even though I know full well going into it that all of the work I'm putting in, all of the work that you've seen me do so far, is going to completely disappear under the oil paint. But it's part of the process. I do from time to time employ other techniques, so such as just putting the going hard with the color and just popping it in there and not doing the underpainting process. So probably at a future art autopsy, I'll do some different techniques just so you guys can, for those of you who come back week after week to watch, can get to see something a little different. So yeah, I can do other techniques, and I do from time to time, especially if a piece really calls for it. But this way is my preferred method, the value underpainting and then adding the color. Though normally when I'm not live streaming, this part that I'm doing now is also done in oil, just so I have more control. You can see me, I can barely finish one little section, and when I come back to paint the next part, it's already dry. I mean, that's how, look at this. This is how fast acrylic dries. So again, great for a live stream, but very difficult to get as complex blends as you can with oil paint. And you guys know the drill, again, if you've watched before, but if you haven't, I'm going to repeat myself a bunch. So for those who have joined recently and not at the top of the stream, you are watching Art Autopsy. This is a live streaming art event I do every 2 weeks at Thursdays at 7 p.m. And I encourage everybody who's watching to make some art right alongside with me. Build up your body of work. Use this as an excuse to make art. If you haven't given yourself an excuse to make art before, or if you feel you need an excuse, I am giving you the permission to make art. It's lots of fun, and it's one of those things that every painting you do, you're going to get better each time, and it's going to enrich your life, if you make art. So do it. Why not? No excuses. Probably what I'm going to do with this gentleman here is I'll give a background scene, you know what I mean? Like maybe he'll be in a neighborhood on Halloween night, or lurking in the woods or something like that. But I'll probably do something with the background. Maybe. Also, if you watch all the time, you know that I'll often theorize about what I'm going to do with a painting, and then by the time I'm done, it is absolutely nothing like what I said I would probably do. So you got to bear with me on that shit. Yeah. Anyway, his neck's pretty long. Let's bring this color in a bit here. I used to go to a live drawing event every month. So one of my good friends, who is a more talented artist than I, would host these life drawing events at his house, and he would get live models and then fill the joint with just the gnarliest, most talented artists you can imagine. And for some reason, I was invited to those things, and they were so fun, and I learned so much drawing from life. But it was such a fun event. It was like one of the few things that I would regularly leave the house to go do. But he doesn't do them anymore. It's a big pain to host something like that. But if you get a chance to draw from life ever, and if you've never done it before especially, I recommend trying it out, because you'll learn stuff drawing from life that you won't learn any other way. And it's tough, man. It's just got to do it a bunch to get better at it. And the thing about that event in particular, and I don't say this out of any sense of false humility, I'm just being like real here, I was probably one of the worst artists in the room. That's how good everyone else in the room was, just so skilled. And to me, that is the room that I want to be in. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in a. I don't want to be the best at. If you're going to an event like that to learn and to get better, you don't want to be the best guy there. You know, you want to be the worst, so that you can watch all of these people who are better than you and who have done it before just kick ass. And I've found too, just in my years of going to art galleries and doing going to live events like that and stuff, just about every artist I've ever met has been so kind to me and willing to discuss their techniques and their methods and share how they do what they do. And I've just been really blown away by the kindness that I have felt in this world of dark art. Where a lot of people probably think that the people that make this kind of stuff are weirdos, and maybe they are weirdos, right? But they're very nice weirdos. It's a spot where I feel right at home in this dark art world. So you can see little, stroke by stroke, it's starting to get there. Again, it's not going to be a perfect representation of my reference, but I think by the time I'm done, you'll be able to look at it, and if you saw the mask, you would know that it was a painting of that mask. That's the hope. But it is more about having fun than it is about perfection, right? You can strive for perfection, but it is unattainable. Strive for it, but don't get caught up on it when you don't reach it, because no one ever does. And I'm going to jump back in the chat in just a second, see what you guys have been saying. But before I do that, let me pose a question to you. If you are at home making art right now while I'm making art, I'd love to know what medium you are using. So tell me, let everyone know in the chat if you're painting, if you're sculpting, if you're I know Jennifer said that she might do some felt work, and I don't know if she's here now, but Julie, who often watches, does that stuff as well. So really any kind of art you're making, tell me what you're working with there in the chat. Love to know. And I'll check in just a second, see what everyone says. Oh man, look at that. I almost broke this brush too. See, I cannot help myself. I'm just bending brushes, snapping them. One of our viewers just made these amazing artistic custom brushes for me. I showed them off in the last live stream, so go back and check those out. But that like hand sculpted handles and all this stuff, they're just beautiful works of art. And I've been so nervous about painting with them because I know how rough I am on brushes. So I still haven't painted with them yet, but I need to do that on a live stream just so you guys can see those brushes in action, because they're really cool. But yeah, I tend to snap them. Can't help myself. Don't want to break those brushes, of course. So now there's all kinds of like open wounds on this guy that I'm kind of painting in as I go. But some of them I'm making a decision to add them after the fact if they're messing with a shape or whatever that I'm trying to get in. So I'm working some of them in, and then some of them I'm just going to add after the fact. Like there's one in particular, like right on the side of the nose right there, that's dripping down, but it'd be tough to work around. Just so I'm going to wait and get that guy in after the when we get into color. There's just a lot happening with all the texture on this mask. All right, let's see what you guys are up to in the chat. Oh, there's magic shop elsewhere. Excellent. I'll have to go on a road trip and visit all the magic shops I've been missing. Okay. Violet's working with acrylic Posca markers. I have not used those. Naman Rudel says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Yeah, same thing. Same thing applies to the art world, in my opinion. Uh, Elizabeth is drawing another ladybug. Awesome. Sketching in pencil and going to line it in pen. Arthur Mariano, home from an art class. Russell Simmons, teacher. I follow him for 2.5 years now. Love the social paint and sip. Acrylics on stretched canvas. Sunset, water, and palm trees. I added the seagull. Nice. Donna, I find it hard to believe, but I get what you mean. That's how you get better. I'm taking notes and stealing your advice and tips, but seriously, I'm working on a basic sketching lesson. Excellent. That's awesome. Russ is famous in Wildwood, New Jersey. Painted many, many murals inside and out. That's awesome. Well, that's great, guys. I'm glad to hear so many of you are making art right along with me. That's fantastic news. Let's get back to my zombie dude. Zombie dude. Ba-ba-ba. Okay. There he is. Now, I think I made his upper lip too big. Let's again, this is all just a process. You know, when you're drawing in paint, let me tell you, you are going to make some mistakes, or I should say, I am going to make some mistakes. You will paint it perfectly the first time. Myself, not so much. Okay, let's see how many teeth are showing. We got 1, 2, 3 showing on that side, so we got that is the end, and then we're off at the dark. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. If you don't talk to yourself while you paint, then good for you. I, however, am incapable. Well, I'm talking to you guys, so it's not really talking to myself, right? I may or may not actually still talk to myself when not streaming, but probably just not in this quantity. Okay. That's a rough approximation of the top teeth. Yeah, I think I messed some things up here, but it's alright. I'm not going to be too precious about it. I think if like, oh, you know what? There's a whole other wound on the side of his face right here that I just missed in the sketch. So that one is going to come down like that, and then we can move some of these other folds over this way. Let's take some of our gray here and just erase what's happening here. Look at that, magically erased. It's magically delicious. All right. Yeah. All right. Like I said, there's nothing that you can do that you cannot fix later on. So as long as you are willing to just keep working until you don't hate it, there is nothing that you can't do. So I've got a art show coming up in LA. This is just a group show that I'm going to have a piece in. Is a tribute to David Lynch, and the art show is called Fish in the Percolator, which, if you are familiar with Lynch's work, you might know is a reference to Twin Peaks. Anyway, so that's coming up in the fall. So I do have to start a painting for that. Depending on the timing, I might do it during an art autopsy, or I might just knock it out outside of the live stream. We'll see how the timing goes. So that's one painting that I have coming up. I also got an invite to submit to another gallery, and I don't normally submit on spec. That means, unless I normally, like, if you invite me to be in the gallery, you want me in the gallery, I'll do it. So I don't do a lot of stuff where it's not certain that my piece is going to get in. But with this particular one, it was a gallery that I wanted to show at for a while, and it's like a normal person gallery. They don't show weirdo stuff like I make, so just getting asked to submit to it being a gallery that I've been wanting to show in for a while was super cool. So I'm going to do a quasi, though not completely, normal-ish painting for that, and that one probably won't be for art autopsy because it may not make as interesting as the weird stuff I normally paint on this show. But I got that coming up anyway. I'm looking forward to jumping into that painting. And then I am endeavoring at the moment to write one new song per week. Now, that being said, if I write one song every week, most of them will be awful. But I'm going to end up with a bunch of stuff that way, and I'm working towards putting out a new System Sin album this year, and that will just get the juices flowing for music writing. And in that, I endeavor to put out some new singles before the album is completed, and inevitably I will be working on paintings. See, I'm timing in. I'm eventually getting around to it. I will be working on paintings that will be the artwork for those singles, and then eventually for the album. So at least a couple of the single artwork, and then maybe the artwork from the album, we'll do during the live stream. So for those of you who also are into my music as well as the art, or if you're just curious about it, you'll get to see kind of that artwork come together from scratch. I was talking just earlier about Once Upon a Second Act. That was an album I put out in 2020. So the 5-year anniversary was yesterday, and that cover has a mechanical heart on it. And this is one case where usually I just do all the artwork myself on my albums, and those can be anywhere. Sometimes they're oil paintings, sometimes they're acrylic, sometimes they're digital paintings, sometimes it's collage work. It's all, it's kind of like whatever I feel is the vibe of the album. That's what the art's going to be. But on this particular album, a friend of mine, his name is Mike Haffenden, and he does these really cool, intricate mechanical paintings. Like he's fantastic with robots and things like that. And he did a series of hearts, and one of the hearts he did was kind of this biomechanical heart, and I loved the painting so much. The painting is probably 20 years old now. It's an older painting of his. I loved the painting so much that I actually have it tattooed on my chest. And while I was working on the album Once Upon a Second Act, it just felt like that image wanted to be on that album. It just, something about the painting just tied in so well with it. But I also wanted kind of like a cleaner, more sterile aesthetic for it. His painting's very painterly, and I just wanted it to be kind of cleaner and a little more modern. So I commissioned another artist friend of mine by the name of James Bonner, who is an incredibly talented sculptor, among other things, also a great visual effects artist. He works with me on movies and stuff. I commissioned him to do a sculpture of Mike's painting, and he knocked it out of the park. And then what we did, or what James did, is he did a digital scan of his sculpture, and he gave that to me, and then I took the digital scan of his sculpture and I threw it into my 3D program, lit it, and used it to make the actual cover art, and then Jim molded the heart for me, and we made a bunch of copies and sold those with the album, and blah 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 blah. The rest is history. That's how that's how that album art came together. Again, I'm going to do a whole video on just the process of making it, because his techniques are really interesting. But for the upcoming stuff, the upcoming album and singles, I'm going to be doing oil paintings, because I'm just in the oil painting mode at the moment. And speaking of paintings, because why not? You may have noticed, for those of you who have followed my art career, that I had a period of time where I wasn't putting out a lot of work. I talked a little bit about this with Chet too on the podcast, but I had actually started a number of paintings, quite a number, and I just didn't get them finished. So I have just innumerable amount of half-finished paintings. So at some point in time, I'm going to go back and start finishing those up. I know I had worked with a number of art models for the references for a lot of these paintings, and that's always a bummer, right? When you work with a model and the painting is slow going, I always feel bad. So I have those looming. I got to finish, but they're probably going to be a little too graphic for the live stream. But again, if you follow me on Patreon or the socials and stuff, you'll eventually see them. You'll see them first if you're on Patreon. Coming along. Again, I'm spending more time on the acrylic sketch, just for the sake of the live stream, so you guys can see it. Because if I were doing all of this in oil right now, by the time I finish the sketch in oil, you're going to have a black and white image that is unfinished, and then the canvas is going to be so saturated in paint we have to call it a night on the stream. And that's what happened the last two live streams. So in the interest of not doing that this time, so you guys can see a little further into the process as we go, I'm back to doing the underpaintings in acrylic. Not that you care, but just explaining. Yeah, so he's just having all kinds of skin sloughing off. It's real fun. Yeah, I can reshape that head. So one thing, for the sake of the mask, you're going to notice, if you look at my reference, not look where I'm pointing at my canvas and then look at the reference, that's just flat, right? Because it's a mask that has to fit onto a human, and this is the zygomatic arch right there of the skull that shows through. In fact, I realized just now as I said that out loud that I fucked up the angle on that. The question that I'm asking myself now is, because it's not a mask, because it's a painting, and I'm not limited by the dimensions that a person can wear, do I go deeper into that socket, and that would take us further away from what the mask, from the reference, but it might look cool. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my head as I move forward and make a decision sometime in the future.
So to jump back to what I was saying at the top of the broadcast, um, if you guys get a chance, check out Alma and the Wolf. It's a film that I was a visual effects supervisor on, and it just came out. Super gnarly werewolf movie, but it's way more than a werewolf movie, and I don't want to say too much about it because it's certainly the type of film that you could spoil easily. They don't want to do that for you. But if you like horror and you're okay with it's, I mean, it's definitely not a kid's horror film. You know, it's for the adults, but it's real. I had a great time working on it, and I really quite enjoyed the director Michael Patrick Jan and the producer David Codron and the practical effects team, which was headed by Jim Ojala, who is just a rad, gnarly makeup effects guy and just super cool. So yeah, I just had a real fun experience with that. So check out that movie. Yeah, I have to just ignore some of the blood that's happening on the mask because it's really messing with messing with my perception of the shapes. So I'm gonna skip some of the blood that you're seeing there on the mask right now just to get the shapes in, and then of course as we go on, that blood will come back in. I know you're sitting there going, where's the blood, right? Just kidding. Of course, you don't care, but I care. This is like a long-standing tradition in the rubber mask world, is having eyeballs pop out. It's such a staple of so many masks that I love, with an eyeball popping out. So of course I had to do my part to contribute to the eyeball popping. That eyeball though is too big. It would not fit in this socket. We're gonna shrink it down a bit. We may have already messed up. Let's see. I gotta shrink it from the outside here. There we go. That's better. But you know, bit by bit, stroke by stroke, it starts to get a little closer to my mask reference. I hope you can see the progress from where we started to where it's going now. Again, just refining, not being afraid to paint over what we've done before. And you know, if while you're in this stage of a painting, right, while you're still basically just drawing it, right, I mean that's what we're doing here, we're just drawing in paint. This is the time when, if you can help it, you want to try to catch as many of those flaws as you can. Now when you get further into the painting, of course you can still correct your flaws and things like that, but if you catch them in the underpainting stage, you're gonna be a lot happier for it, because then you'll have less cover up to do. Once we get into color, then it gets a little trickier to cover up some of those things. Again, it can all be done, and there is 0% chance that I won't mess up in color as well and have to correct many things. But I just try to get most of the corrections out of the way right now in black and white. Yeah, the other thing too is I'm looking at this painting from an angle because I'm kind of like off to the left of the painting here while I paint, just so I'm not blocking the camera as much as possible. So I gotta keep reminding myself I gotta pop my head in and look at it straight on to make sure I'm not drifting too far away from it. You know, while you're painting, when I'm painting inside, my home, I have a big mirror set up in my office, so it's real easy. I can just turn the painting around and look at it. Off to the right, actually right behind where the mask is right now, there's also a mirror, and the purpose of that is that I can hold up a painting in the mirror and double check. But if you don't have a mirror handy while you're painting, another easy way to do it is just turn your painting upside down. And if there's anything wrong about the anatomy, a lot of times, so I'm right-handed, right? So a right-handed painter, it tends to skew off to the up and to the right. Sometimes, if you'll see that on artists, if their paintings tend to skew up and to the right, they're probably right-handed. Up and to the left, they're probably left-handed. It's just a natural thing, and the more you you paint, you just overcome that kind of thing. But you can check your work just by turning it upside down or looking at it in a mirror. And I still do that to this day, even though, generally speaking, well, like right now, I was pretty happy with that shape. When I turned it upside down, I wasn't seeing anything that was too askew, not perfect, but it's was better than it had any right to be for how little time I spent on it thus far. But yeah, anyway, that's a great way to check your work. So, okay, this is just like this bloody, slick skin spot right here. I'm not going to get into too much detail on the underpainting because this is just going to be a complex layer of different shades of red and light reflections and stuff like that. So again, skipping over some of the wound detail just in the underpainting side because I know it'll just be easier for me to do that in color. The cool thing about this mask, or let me just compliment myself here now. What I love about this mask is how so red and green are complementary colors. If you don't know, that means if you're looking at a color wheel, they're opposite each other on the color wheel, which means they complement each other. So just the blood goes so nicely with his skin tone. It's just such a cool contrast because of you get the color pop. So once we get into color on this one, as you guys probably know, I love to paint in vivid colors, and this is going to be a really fun one to work in with that because he's this just toxic green color, and then the blood is just really dark crimson, but it catches the light in a way that's going to make it really unique. Now he has all of these because his skin, again, is sloughing off, so he's got all of this loose skin around the neck. You can't necessarily see it all from this angle because a lot of it is happening on his left side, but I certainly want to hint at that at least, so we can see something messed up is happening here on this side. And I'm just again, you can't see my palette. Maybe in a future one, I'll try to rig up another camera pointed at the palette. But because we're working in acrylic here and it dries fast, when you see me just putting a straight gray color on, I'm just mixing that on the fly right on my palette, and then trying to throw it in there fast. Again, just getting the values, not being too precious with it just yet. That will come later. Okay, coming along. I think it's time to check in with the chat and see how you fine folks are doing. Oh, Liz says there's a magic shop in Orange County. How that might be worth a drive if it's still there. Cool, good to know. Cool. Yeah, guys, thanks for keeping the chat going. I appreciate it. Donna, that's so cool that you're teaching art and
too. I love that. Fantastic. Okay. Let's keep going. All right. Yeah, he's really shaping up. Actually, I'm just looking at the image on the screen here of the reference next to the painting. That's not too bad. You know, it's not spot on, but, you know, it's getting closer. I can see, though, so the neck has, like, on the mask, definitely has a longer flap here, but it's looking a little not cool in the painting. Like, it's, we need to bring that in a bit, and I think we probably just want to raise the shirt up a bit too. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe that's the shirt color or the shoulder line there, right? This kind of gives him a little bit of a twist, right? Like he's twisting toward us in that way. It kind of implies movement happening below. Maybe. Or I'm just crazy. But yeah, I'm just gonna, again, this is just for the sake of seeing some contrast here in our underpainting. I'm just gonna give him a white shirt for now, although like I said, we're probably gonna give him like a bright red t-shirt, just as an homage to the original resin bust that came with the red hoodie. Okay. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. As always, my chair continues to squeak. Squeak, squeak. No amount of WD-40 will fix it. I've tried. I've given up. Okay. Yeah, this is. I'm just gonna throw a little bit more highlights in here. Maybe get some highlights on the ear here. But I think we're almost ready to get into color. You know what I mean? Ear's a little tricky because some of his hair is overhanging it, and we certainly want that hair in there. But not gonna worry about it too much at the moment. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna sitting back and looking at this for a second. Sometimes you just gotta do that when you're working on a piece. Just take a step back. I'm gonna stand up, step back a couple feet, just see if I can identify some issues with it that can be fixed at this stage. Yeah, it's this side of the neck here is a little. Let's bring that in. And maybe I'm going to bring this shoulder up too on this side. Just a touch. I'm not, when I'm dealing with the neck here and the shoulder and stuff, obviously I'm not going for accuracy with the reference so much as I am, because I'm trying to just make it its own thing, since this is clearly now a full-on character and not just a mask. I can fudge it a bit when it comes to minor details like the positioning of the neck, just to get it to look better. Let's see. So we can thin up his neck a little bit, even though it is thicker on the mask. But for the sake of the painting, we'll fudge that. That's a little better. Cool. Well, hey, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. I'm going to check in with you guys again. Okay. Still watching. One of these days I'm going to turn back and everyone will have clicked off. Okay. So,
we're going to give this just a few minutes to make sure all the acrylic is dried up, and while we're doing that, we're going to make our color selections, right? So got a few colors out already just from the last painting, so I'm going to see which from these we want. Okay, so phthalo green, that's a for sure, but this will not be the only green that we're using. Cadmium red, this is the deep hue, is a for sure. We also are going to want cadmium red light hue, which is a more orangey red. Set those aside. Titanium white, you know, of course. And let's see, just looking at this, I'm looking at the sculpture itself, trying to see what colors I see in it. I think, of course, we can throw in some cad yellow, which will get mixed with that phthalo green. And now I'm going to pull out my box of paints here, which is currently under my easel. And this is just a big mess, a disorganized jumble of paints. Okay, this one is pretty great. This is this, I can barely read that. Something Holland's Geel. This is not, oh, there is an English version. Let's read the English version. Yellow green. And you can imagine once we start mixing this yellow green with our phthalo green and some yellows in there and so forth, I'm actually going to squeeze out some cobalt blue while I'm at it. And that's just so I have can better manipulate the green tones. And then I have this Terra Verte. I cannot pronounce paint names, man. What's wrong with me? I've only been doing this my whole life. Okay, and then of course, number one pick for this painting, alizarin crimson. There is no way I could do this painting without crimson. Okay, so that's a pretty complex palette. But, oh, and then also iron oxide red. You guys know I use that all the time. So this, I'm going to show you what I selected, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to look at what we selected, and then we're going to limit the colors, right? Because I just went buck wild with it. I'm picking all the colors that I see in this mask, right? Just with my stupid human eyes, I selected those, but and I may end up using all of these eventually in the painting, but there's so many colors right now that it's too much to start with for the glazing process. I want to just start with a limited color palette, and then we'll expand upon that later. So I think if to start with, on the red side of things, I currently have 4 different reds selected. I've got cad orange light, cad orange deep, alizarin crimson, and the transparent oxide, right? So for the time being, I'm going to set aside the 2 cadmium reds. All right, those are going to be secondary colors. We're going to get into those later. I'm going to keep the alizarin crimson, which is going to be the base of our blood color, and I'm going to keep the iron oxide red, and this is going to mostly be our browns in the skin tones, like the shadows around his forehead and around his eye sockets and his lips and stuff like that. That's going to be the iron oxide red. Okay, now let's look at what else we've got. Now we're left with colors that we're going to make our green from, right? And we have Terra Verte, which is this almost like an olive green, the phthalo green, the yellow green, and then again our yellow and our blue. Now, none of these colors by themselves are the right shade of green. If you were just to think of like what the average, I'm pointing to a mask you guys aren't seeing, but if we were just to think of like what the average overall shade of green that thing is, none of these hit the mark exactly. But I think I can get there with a combination of this yellow green and a cobalt blue. So I'm going to use those 2 colors as a base
to start with for our first layer of green, and I'm going to set these other ones aside, and we're going to come back to these later on. So there we go. That was probably way more information than any of you wanted on my color selection process. Looking back at the chat here, let's see. Jennifer says you're going to need the alizarin crimson. Yes, 100%. Okay, let's get back to it. I'm going to switch over to the view so you can see the reference and know that the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do the green. And so I'm going to be taking the yellow green and my cobalt blue, and I'm going to be mixing this up and trying to get to a nice color. I have my, well, you can see right here, my palette for the moment is just this piece of cardboard that I taped down here. So I'm going to be mixing on there. Yeah, let's take a look at our our reference here. Let's see, how are we doing on time? 8:29. Can you believe we have been at this for an hour and a half already? Craziness. Time flies when you're slinging paint. Okay, so I'm just squeezing these out on my palette now, and I'm going to mix them up with a palette knife. And then I'm also going to get some liquid, which again, if you've watched the show, you've heard me talk about liquid ad nauseum. But if you need a refresher, it is a medium that you mix with your paint, and that medium not only thins out the paint and allows you to do the glazing technique, but as an added bonus, it accelerates your dry time. This is what the bottle looks like. It is a kind of a pain in the ass to open, so I'm gonna try. Oh, hey, it opened right away this time, of course. Yeah, so I'm just squeezing out a bunch of that. I'm going to mix that with my green. Let me show you real quick though. So I just mixed, this is the green color that I mixed up right here, and I'll try to get it close to the reference there. You can see that's a pretty good middle tone, right? It's not specifically any one green color that is on the mask, but it's like somewhere in the middle of all of those different shades of green. So when I take this green, again, mix it with the liquid to really thin it out, and I'm going to glaze on a very thin layer of this green, and it's going to go across all of his skin tones. I'm not going to be too precious about whether or not it gets into the bloody bits just yet. I'll try to avoid them, but some of it will cross over. And you'll see as we do this process that our shadows and our highlights are going to shine through. Again, eventually, all to be painted over, right? By the end of the painting, many coats of paint, you won't see those at all. It will all just be the oil. But for right now, this is first layer of glazing. You're going to see what happens there. See that? I'm still seeing the highlights, and I'm still seeing the shadows. And we front-loaded the work, right? By doing that, by doing the lights and shadows there. We front-loaded all of that work. So now when we get into glazing, I mean, like magic, we're already having a more complex image just because those tones are showing underneath. And what those tones serve to do now, so I can see approximately, you know, I'm going to change it up, but where I want the shadows, where I want the highlights, and then as I go in and I start glazing, I start mixing in other colors, because remember, it's an oil paint, and even with the liquid, this is still going to stay wet, right? So now as I go in to add the other colors in here, I can just mix them right on the canvas, right in there, and I can use those guidelines that we established with the acrylic sketch underneath as a map for where I'm going to place those other colors that we've selected to represent
you know, the different parts of the skin tone. So making progress, but isn't it kind of magical how how the colors, it all just comes together once you just glaze this on. Already looking more like our mask. And then there are undoubtedly some of these areas here where, tonally speaking, and what I mean by that is like, again, just the tone of it, the difference between the light and the shadow is the same, right? Inevitably, some of the blood is going to hit the light and the shadows in the same way that some of the green does. And so in the black and white version, it might be hard to separate those, but because these are going to be complementary colors, our green and our red that we're going to put in, any of those areas where they were tonally the same between the black and white version of the green and the red, the difference in color will make those things pop anyway. So, yeah. You'll see as we go. Oh, you know, I have a, so this, this sculpture, the mask, I sculpted a while ago. I think this was at least 5 or 6 years ago. It was a while ago. And then when I was going to do, so I originally, again, I said this already, but I promise it'll have a point. I did it originally as a resin bust, right? So it's hard resin, display only, not wearable. But then when I decided I wanted to do a latex bust, the difference is, or a latex mask, latex shrinks in the mold, right? So normally with a latex mask, you want to do this as do a cement mold or a plaster mold, basically. I use a material called hydrocal or ultracal, either one, depending on what I have on hand. It's basically cement, right? And so what you do is you pour your latex into your cement mold, and you just let it sit in the mold for an hour or so, and then you dump it out, and you have a nice thick layer of latex that has stuck to the inside of that mold, and then it can harden up. But because I originally did this for a resin bus, I didn't have a ultracal mold. I had a silicone mold, and latex does not want to stick to silicone unless you force it. But the problem I had with that is that if I just simply remolded it, it's going to shrink more and more each time, and eventually I would end up with a mask that was just too small to wear. I tried all kinds of different things. Let me just show you this now. As a first step, I tried doing a clay pour, and then I was going to retool this and do it as an overhead mask, but I still ran into it. It was just too small, and I wasn't getting this big enough. So that was me just pouring a wax-based clay into the silicone mold, and then eventually I just came to the realization, you know what, if I'm going to do this as a mask, I just have to deal with the pain in the ass and slow process of painting it layer by layer into the silicone mold and letting it dry layer by layer. So that was just what I was left with, because when I originally molded it, I didn't have the foresight to think I was going to do latex masks with it. So, long story short, these masks can be a big pain in the ass to make, but I still love making them. All right, we're going to squeeze out some alizarin crimson now, and that's going to be the reds. And then we'll have our
base green and our base red in, and then we can start going wild with the other colors, adding those in. But if you dig this mask and you want one for your collection, they are available on clintcarney.com. They are not cheap because it is just a time-consuming process to make these. As I mentioned, that's only part of them. They get airbrushed, they get hand-painted, they get finished, haired, all kinds of stuff. It takes a while to make them, so they're not cheap. But if you want one, you can order one, and then it usually takes me a couple weeks to make one. So, or sometimes faster. The longest part is actually just going through brushing on the latex layer by layer, letting it dry, again just because of the nature of the silicone mold. But oftentimes, depending on how many orders have come in at any given time, I will have some blanks ready to go that are just ready to be painted, because I tend to, even when an order doesn't come in, I like to have some of the masks ready. So a lot of times it does take doesn't take the full 2 weeks, but I give that warning just in case. So if you did want to spend a stupid amount of money on a mask and you wanted it in time for Halloween, just give me enough time to do it. There are so many. I love just the art form of masks as well. I mean, not only making it, but just as a consumer of art, of someone who loves all things art, like just the artistry that goes into making a lot of these things, which is one of the reasons I collect them. I just really appreciate the process, and a lot of the mask makers that I know are like the gnarliest sculptors. I know, I know a lot of sculptors, a lot of really talented guys, but the guys doing masks, specifically for whatever reason, tend to be the sculptures that I gravitate to the most. Probably just the personal preference of masks. But if you haven't sculpted before and are curious about it, highly recommend giving it a shot. I think personally, I think it's harder to paint than it is to sculpt. This is just for me, at least. So I don't want to speak for any other artist, but when you're sculpting, you're creating a three-dimensional object in three-dimensional form, right? So you can pick it up, you can turn it around, you can see where everything goes and if the proportions are right, and it's much easier to tell when you've messed up. But when you're working with, let's see, sorry, I got sidetracked by my blathering here. But when you're working with a two-dimensional thing, like a drawing or a painting, and you're using a three-dimensional object as a reference, you are translating the three-dimensional object into a two-dimensional space. So it's a whole other level that your brain is working on to go from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions. And that, for me at least, is why I think sculpting is easier. Because you're not trying to translate 3D into 2D. You're working in 3D, and you can see it in all of its glory. So that's my 2 cents on sculpting. It's a lot of fun though, and if I think, and of course, maybe not for everyone, but in general, I think if you can draw, you can probably sculpt as well. You may not know it, and I'm not saying you can just start sculpting immediately and be great at it. You got, like anything, it takes practice. But if you've
done your homework with drawing and have got pretty good at that, the conversion from that to sculpting is not as big of a leap as you would think. I guess it probably works the other way too. The guys that have just sculpted their whole lives, I guess you get so used to how things look that I can only imagine that would also help converting over to the 2D workflow. But I don't know, man. I'm just rambling. Okay. Okay, so this shirt is going to be a more vibrant red or whatever. I'm just, for the sake of the example here, showing you how we start with it. Okay, you can see basic colors, right? Just basically green, red over our black and white, and you can kind of see how all the shading and stuff is shining through the color. Let's see. Just catching up on the chat here. Thank you guys for the nice comments. Oh, hey, my dad's watching. Hey. Let's see. Cool. All right. Sorry. Yeah, I like to just make sure I'm catching all the comments. I probably missed a bunch, but all right. So we're getting there, right? Basic color is in, and all of this is still very wet right now, so I'm not going to touch it with my finger as much as I might want to. So now we're going to get in and add some additional colors and start really shaping this up. So let's ignore the red for now, and let's just work on making the green more complex. So as you'll recall, initially I squeezed out the cobalt blue and the yellow green, and the combo of these two, more green than blue, but I would say 2-to-1 ratio of green to blue, got us this color. So I'm going to use more cobalt blue in the shadow, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to squeeze out some of this phthalo green and some of this cadmium yellow and some of this transparent oxide, and I'm just going to have these as colors on my palette. I am also going to mix those with the liquid, but not as much, because I want more of the pigment on these ones to come through, and you'll see as I put these colors on the canvas, this green base being wet, I'm going to be able to blend right in with those. And again, I'm going to start from the top down. As always, that's just a practical decision, so you're not smearing your work if you go from the bottom up. But yeah, that's the game plan. I'm going to squeeze these out on the palette, and then we're going to jump back in and start working on making these skin tones more complex. And a lot of people, this is a common complaint with people who don't want to oil paint or talk themselves out of it, the price of oil painting, the price of oil paints. And it is true, a tube of oil paint is more expensive than a tube of acrylic. If you look at the tubes are smaller, they cost 5 times as much or whatever. But I have found just the way that I paint, with these thinner layers and so forth, and building up, the tubes last forever. So yeah, it is a front-loaded expense if you buy all of your colors at once, but you don't have to buy all of your colors at once. You can just start with a limited color palette. Start with get black, white, and then get some kind of red, some kind of blue, some kind of yellow, and you're off to the races. Primary and black and white. That's really all you need, and you can mix every other color. A lot of people don't want to do that, but if you force yourself to do that, you're going to learn a lot about color real fast. Okay, so I got my colors on my palette now, and I've got a little bit of liquid mixed in, and I'm just gonna go, and now I'm looking at kind of the guide of these shadows that are showing through. Right now I'm taking some cobalt blue and I'm just reinforcing some of these shadows with a little bit of the cobalt blue, just letting it blend right in with the green underneath. And I'll tell you too, I also have a little bit of an advantage when doing a painting of this mask, because I painted the actual mask too, so I'm aware of what colors, I worked in there. Now granted, those are different kinds of paint or whatever, but anyway, I know roughly what kind of colors to blend in to get to where we're going. And I always keep a rag in my hand as I'm working, and I'm just going from color to color here, and I'm just in between colors, I'm just wiping it off. I'm not like, I don't care if it can get a little muddy right now because I'm kind of blending some of these together, so I'm not being too precious about cleaning the brush thoroughly in between these colors. And then see this, and now I'm just lightly touching it, and look at how these colors just blend in there with the green, and we're getting softer skin tones already. And right now, again, working from the top down, so I'm just really looking at the forehead area for right now. And I'm going to take some of that cadmium yellow here. Just going to go a little bold with that, because we're going to tone that down in a second. But all right, just throw it in bold, and then just light movements, barely touching. And we're blending those two colors together. Now I'm going to overlap into this spot here where we have our iron oxide red, and just kind of let those colors blend into each other a bit. Now we're going to, again, this painting, as always, this painting is not going to get finished in the live stream. We're going to get pretty close to it, but these are just base layers here, right? By the time this painting's done, I want it to be nice and rich and very complex with the colors and with the detailing on the skin, and just the nature of oil paint and the slow dry time, that's eventually going to prevent us from, we're going to hit a wall at some point where the canvas is so drenched in paint that if we keep working it, we're just getting things muddy, and that's kind of the point where we have to stop. But we're going to keep going until we hit that point. And now I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of titanium white on the old palette, and I'm going to bring this in. I'm not mixing the titanium white with the liquid, but I am wiping I'm getting paint on the brush, and then I'm wiping most of the paint off the brush, so that there's just a little bit on there, so I don't go too bold with it, because I don't want to overpower the color, but I want to blend in with the color a bit so I can get a little bit of soft gradient. So on my setup off camera here, where the mask is, there's just like a table lamp right to this side of it, and it's just casting just these little highlights on this side, so I'm just getting those in, and then I'll go even thinner with the white and just soften up some of these skin textures here, just in the highlights. And then, you know, one thing, and you can kind of already see this taking, well, you can certainly see it here, but even here where I'm adding detail up top, at this stage, it's just a little flat, right? And by that, what I mean is that the image isn't feeling very 3D. It's looking very illustrative and flat. And that's just part of this stage that the painting goes through when you employ this technique that I'm doing. But subsequent layers, as we move on with the piece, and we really start to come back and punctuate the shadows and the highlights, and then the what is looking flat now eventually gets rounded off in a nice way. So this is a trust the process scenario. Now it's coming in with just a little bit of this phthalo green here. This is one of, if you ever watched The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross, he often would lean on phthalo green as his main green for many of his landscapes. But now you know that phthalo green also makes a good zombie flesh tone detail. Before we get too far down the face, I'm probably should start working something into the hair, you know, start working on that. So we're gonna get to that shortly as well. And I'm going a little bolder, I decided, on some of this cobalt blue than you're gonna see, or than I'm seeing in the mask, or than you see in the reference, just because, as I mentioned early in the stream, because of the live stream, I couldn't put this in as contrasty of light as I would like to for the reference. You know, I'd rather have it light it in a blacked out room with just, you know, a nice 3-point lighting system setup, or even a 2-point setup, but because we need the light on so that you guys can watch, I had to sacrifice a little bit of the boldness of the lighting choices that I otherwise would have had to make, but or would have wanted to make. But I'm going to make up for that in just in paint, you know, going a little crazier than the reference might tell us we need to. That was too much there. There we go. You got to be careful too when you're painting thin. If you do clean your brush off in between, make sure you get all of the turpenoid dried off of your brush. That's the solvent that I use to clean the brush, before you bring it back to your canvas, because it's easy enough to accidentally leave turpenoid on your brush, and then you'll find yourself wiping away your paint when you go back to paint. Keep an eye out for that. Okay, cool. Let's do something real quick. Cover that up. So the forehead, that's just the part that we've done so far. So yeah, not still a little flat, but as we go in with subsequent layers, we'll fix the flatness. But yeah, let's rough in some hair here. Mostly in the hair, it's black. I mean, the actual color of the hair is black. But if you look at the reference here, yeah, we can see there's a incandescent light coming in from this side. It's casting a little bit of yellow hue, which almost feels like a very light brown here. We certainly see the highlights of the overhead light. There's another light source coming from that direction, which has given us some grays. I think just for the sake of an interesting image, I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt blue in the process. And then in fact, I'm just going to mix up a black adjacent color instead of just squeezing out black from black paint. I'm going to take a little bit of cobalt blue, mix it with a little bit of the iron oxide red, and get a color that isn't quite black, but it's pretty dark, and it's just going to be a little more pleasing than if I went with a really harsh black. You know, I don't know if any of you have done the art school thing. I did not do the art school thing, but I have been admonished by others for my lack of adhering to the way they teach you to do things in art school. And I know one of the rules is don't use black. You know, don't use a black. You got to mix it up like I'm doing here. And I'll say that rule is bullshit. Like, yeah, I mean, you can mix your own up if you want, but some paintings I find it completely appropriate to just go in with a black. I take it on a case by case basis. So it's art. There are no rules. Well, there are, but the rules are there to break. This is one thing I love about these kind of chisel tip brushes. You've seen me work in these before, probably, how they have that angle. They're just very versatile. So I mean, I've just been using, these brushes this whole painting so far, and you can get these kind of thin hair textures out of them if you know how to manipulate the brush the right way. So I really enjoy this kind of brush. It's certainly my go-to. And we're going to come in with the highlights. I don't want the highlights to be just bright red. Bright white. So I'm going to mix, for my highlight color, I'm mixing titanium white with a little bit of the iron oxide red, and then I'm just kind of work that in. Later on, at a later stage of the painting, I may come in with an even bolder highlight choice for the hair, but for this stage, it's actually at this stage I might end up working in a bolder white, but we'll see. I'm making it up as I go along, so bear with me. And then here, this part here isn't so much a highlight, but the hair is thinner, and we see a little bit of the green of the face showing through. But if I put the green in there, it's going to be a mess. But what I can do, I think, is just take a little bit of the cobalt blue, mix a little bit of the titanium white in there, and then I can just hint at, I gotta get more paint on my brush, and then I can just hint at these highlights, which are really more so just the some of that green skin tone showing through the black hair. So and this is just that the material is just that there's a very specific Halloween wig material. They call them fright wigs or something like that. And that's all this is. So it's not a complex wig. You know, it's a very masky type wig, and therefore very forgiving when you're painting this, because it's not crazy. You know, it's relatively short hair and it's spiky or whatever, so I can really just kind of fudge it and it'll be fine. And I am going to take a little, just mix it up a little lighter, just for a few key highlights I'm seeing here where the light is really hitting it. Yeah, alright, maybe a couple of strands there. Okay. That's fine for now. And then I'm doing, this is, the line there is pretty bold, the difference between the hair and the wig color, but I will probably add some extra strands of hair later on, but for right now I'm staying relatively close to to the actual way the hair on the mask is designed, but I'll end up fudging that as we go and just making it more interesting by adding additional hair. I think, again, making it up as I go, so I may change my mind. And then I still got to think about like what we're going to do with the background on this gentleman here. And this right here, I'm just adding a little bit of highlight to the edge here, almost like a rim light. This is not, I'm not seeing this little rim light doesn't exist in my little still life here of the mask, but I want it there to pop out the hair from the background, just so I don't lose sight of the shape of the hair, and I may or may not keep it. More than likely what I'll end up doing though is that as I move forward with the painting, you know, after the stream later on, once I've had some time, and I decide, I make the decision about what I want to be in the background, I'll possibly choose some kind of a light source that's going to live in the background that would then cast the rim light onto the back of him, and then from there figure out the color based on whatever that light source might be. So again, right now I don't know, I'm almost leaning, you know, suburban neighborhood on Halloween night, trick-or-treating kind of background, but maybe that's not the vibe. I don't know yet. We'll see. This side is catching less of the less of that warm light from the lamp behind it, but more of the cool light from the room. So I'm just throwing a little bit of blue in there with the with our highlight color. Again, this is all just rough, you know. It's all it's a process. Super rough. Okay, let's move on. Let's take care of this mess, this tangle of gore coming out. Well, actually, no, we're gonna stick with the green skin tone first. I almost got sidetracked there. phthalo green for the cooler parts in here. I'm going to use this phthalo green to kind of shape the nose a bit, add some shadow. Let's see, we're already past the 2-hour mark. Some of you guys are still hanging in. I'm sure we've lost people. I haven't looked at the chat in a while. But thank you for everyone who's still hanging in. I so appreciate you guys joining in for the live stream. It means a lot to me. It's always fun making art with friends. And I hope you guys are having a good time. Yeah, well, probably with this painting, I want to get because I got the paint out. You know, I want to get the basic, this stage of the skin tone mapped out before we call it a night. So, you know, I'm going to be in it for a while longer. If you guys want to stick with me, that would be awesome. And then after we get that basic part of the skin tone in, I'll take a breather, let it dry, and then come back to the painting tomorrow or the next day, however long it takes for that to fully dry. The skin here is so wrinkly on this thing. I'm not going for wrinkle by wrinkle accuracy. I'm just going for the vibe of it, you know what I mean? Like you just selling the look without trying to, you know, I mean, it's not, after all, it's not a tracing. So, you know, I'm okay with it not being 100% accurate, wrinkle for wrinkle. You could do that, but I think that would kind of suck the fun out of the process for me if I were that anal retentive about it. So let me know in the comments too. Oh, also let me throw this out real quick, and then I'll say what I was about to say. If you can, if you don't mind, if you give the video a like and even add a comment to the video whenever you get a chance, that would go a long way towards helping us out with the algorithm in terms of just discoverability, having more artists find the live stream. You know, obviously the more people that participate, the more lively the chats get in the future and all that stuff. So if you can, smash that like button, as the kids say. I'm old. Okay, let's see. Throw a little bit of red back in here. So he has, I don't know if you can tell, let me look at the photo. Yeah, it's probably hard to tell on the photo, but this right here on the mask is a wound, and then you'll see there's also blood coming out here, and that's just a drip of blood. So I'll get into those drips later on, but for now I'm just getting the shapes that are actually there, because those shapes are more important where it's actually carved into the skin, and then the blood is going to, once I have the skin worked out, then we get into that blood, and then I can use what I've established in terms of the geometry of the face to tell me, to dictate how that blood is going to flow over the top of it. Yeah, and again, there's another wound here. It's a fairly shallow one, and then we just have the blood that drips down, which we're going to get into later. I don't even think I'm going to get into any smaller brushes on this particular session. I think I'm just going to stick with the same old brush. I would have used one brush on the entire painting so far had I not snapped the first brush accidentally. No, that's alright. Every painting typically has at least one brush casualty around these parts. I'm very curious to see what you guys are creating. So again, if you are making art during this live stream, please, if you'd like to share it with me and the viewers, email it to me. My email address is clintcarneycreates@gmail.com, and also feel free, if you want, to include social links, and I'll share it in the next live stream, which will be 2 weeks from today. So whatever 2 Thursdays from today is. Yeah, so send me the work. Send me what you're working on. I'll share it if you want other people to see it. It's a good free way to get your work out there. And even though, I mean, as you can probably clearly see how many people are watching this stream right now, the live streams themselves, while they're live, don't get a ton of viewership, but the live streams stay up over time, and over time people do come back and find the videos and watch them. So when we do those kind of art features and stuff, it's not just for the people who are tuning in live, but it's for all the people that might tune in and rewatch the live stream at a later date. Okay, so around here, if you look, it's the paint around the eye, the paint of the mask is dark, but it catches the light in a way. I have to squeeze out more titanium white. It catches the light in a way and almost gives it like a bluish gray cast for some of the highlights that are coming out of that dark spot. So I'm just going to mix up a quick gray, which is just a mixture of cobalt blue. Again, I'm not trying to go too crazy with the color palette, so I'm using cobalt blue, titanium white, and just a hair of the iron oxide red to neutralize the blue a bit, and that is going to act as that subtle highlight for the way the light is bouncing off of the darker darker skin tone there around the eye. I know I said I was just going to do the skin tone first, but I can't leave this eye like that. It's killing me. It looks too bad. So I'm going to do a little bit of work on this eyeball just to give it some shape, because right now it's super flat and dull. Now, let's see, I'm looking at the reference here. Yeah, you can't tell in the reference. There is actually, oh man, see this? I was right about to smear black paint onto that eyeball because I accidentally dragged my brush through the black on my way from the color I just mixed up. Glad I caught that before I just blacked out his eyeball. But yeah, it's hard to tell on the reference, but there is a very faint iris in in here, and it's just almost completely whited out. So it's so subtle, in fact, that I'm either going to ignore it or play it up and make it more bold so that you can see it. I don't know yet which one I'm going to do, and I'm not committing to either right now. I'm just simply getting, rounding it off for right now, just so it doesn't look so flat. And then I'm going to just do a minor amount of work on the eyelid. I got to get more liquid on my palette. And sorry guys, I've not been in the chat a lot on this one. I will pop back in a sec just to see. I halfway suspect that I'm going so long here that I'm going to pop in and I will have lost all of my audience, and I've just been here talking to myself for the last half hour, but who knows? I'll find out very soon. Okay, and then so I just put in a little alizarin crimson there around the the rim of the eyelid there, and then I'm just very subtly working it in a little bit into the white around the edges, and we'll refine all that more later on as we go, but it's already feeling better, a little more dynamic than it was feeling before. Take a little bit of the titanium white, mix up a little pinkish red with the color, and I'm just going to bring that in with a little bit of highlights in here. Again, we're going to come in with more detail later, but I just wanted to get that eyeball in a little better spot than it was before. All right, let me check in with the chat, see how you guys are doing, make sure I haven't lost the audience. If everyone's gone, then let's see. Okay, back on the chat, and we got 10 people watching still. Okay, very cool. Let's see, how's everyone doing? Oh, hey, Paint Hand Dan, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Paint Hand Dan was joined us for the premiere of the Dark Art Society podcast. So very cool to see him on here. See a few people came over from that podcast to here, so that's always cool to see. Let's see. Yeah, close call with the black there on the eyeball. Oh God, the fucker has been painting non-stop. Excellent. Oh, cool. The Undead of Night just stumbled into the live stream. Oh, thanks so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying it. And yeah, please subscribe. Yeah, everyone, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. I do these every 2 weeks, and they are a lot of fun. But also, not only do I do them every 2 weeks, but I try to do something very different each time. So I try, obviously I'm never painting the same thing twice, but I try to employ different techniques, each time. And like this time we're doing a still life reference here as a Halloween mask, which is something we haven't done on the channel before. So I try to make it different every time, so to keep you guys entertained. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to giving me the time of your evening to watch me paint. Okay, so you can see, again, we're going to ignore, I haven't done this eyeball yet. I might just go ahead and at least do that eye socket. So you can see up top here above this cloth, it's starting to round out more. Again, a subsequent pass or two or three or four or five is going to really make it come together. But you see how that looks already more dynamic than this bottom half, which was just the basic colors, which is very flat. So we got to get all of the painting to the same stage that this part of the painting's in, and then it dries, and then we come back and we do more layers, blah 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 blah. That's where we're at. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just work on this little gory bit coming out of his eyeball because it's just too flat for my liking. I don't want to deal with that. So I'm just a pretty thin mix again of the alizarin crimson, just reinforcing that color. And you see when you do this glazing technique too that the more layers you put on top, the richer the color gets. So you see just that's 2 layers of the crimson versus, let's say, like these wounds, which are just the 1 layer of the crimson, and obviously you can clearly see that that's a lot more bold. Bold of a color choice. And now that's super wet because I just put that fresh layer on. So I'm going to go take some titanium white, mix it in, come up with some different shades of pink here on my palette, and I can still see the underpainting coming through, and that's going to tell me where I know, based on my underpainting drawing, where I want those highlights to pop in. So I'm just going to hit some selected highlights with this pink color, and we'll go in and add some other details in there too. Start blending these together, and then of course eventually we're going to end up putting in some pretty bold specular highlights. So since this part, many parts on this mask you can see are very glossy, I applied a gloss all over the mask, on any of the wounds and all the eyeballs and stuff. So all of that stuff is just screaming for some specular highlights, and those are just little dots of red, or dots of white that catch the light in the room. It's just a straight reflection of the light in the room, and those kinds of highlights really will make your gore look wet, which is what ultimately we want to go for. But we're not at the stage yet for the specular highlights. We're still just baby steps to get there. Okay. So now I'm going to mix up some more of my almost black, which again I'm doing with just a cobalt blue and iron oxide red together. I'll lean a little more heavily on the cobalt blue than on the iron oxide red, and it creates a pretty dark, almost black color, which I'm going to pop into some of the shadow parts here. Looking now, I may have moved my head a bit from when I sketched this originally, but I think that socket needed to go out a little more. And you know what I'm seeing now too in some of this gore as I'm looking at it is just the way the light is bouncing off some of this. I'm catching some yellows, so I might go crazy and add some yellow into this texture, into the just this mass of gore. Not that there's yellow in the mask itself, but again we're seeing the warm light off of the lamp that is, well, you can see it in the reference there. Some of that's bouncing off. The light in the room itself, the overall light is kind of all over the place. It's like some of it's warm, some of it's cool. I'm just being selective, and again, not necessarily being too rigid to the reality of the painting. You know, not going wrinkle by wrinkle or glint by glint with the way the light hits it, but just making little choices here and there to suggest these things. We're still in the bold, big movement, or big shape, part of this painting. Eventually, as I continue to work this in the days to come, I'll start making more decisions about fine details and stuff like that. But for now, I'm cool with just big, bold decisions of these little splashes of yellow in here, right? Just this gnarly mass of gore pouring out of this poor dude's face. Okay, that's a little better. Again, highlights and stuff coming later, but it was just looking too flat before, so I wanted to get something in there. Okay, let's get back to shaping his nose. So this right here, if you think of the skeletal structure underneath, this is the top of the ridge of the nasal bone, and the rest on the sculpture is sunken in beyond that. So that's what that little line detail is that's happening. I'm just work in a little bit of cobalt blue as a shadow color, try to just refine the shape of this nose a little better. Great, and I think I'm just going to take some of the original green color that I mixed up and just throw in a bold bit of it here and there on the nose. Okay. Yeah, he's shaping up again. Ignore all that bullshit, but let's cover up the part we haven't worked in more. Yeah, so it's coming along bit by bit. We are getting there. It's a multi-stage process. So for the benefit of those who are watching who have not watched my live streams before, during these live streams I try to take the painting to as far as I can go with it, before I hit like canvas saturation in terms of just the paint soaking up the canvas, and then I usually take a day or two off from that painting and work on something else I'm working on, and then come back to it, and then I end up spending anywhere from another 2 days to the full 2 weeks before the next live stream, just noodling around with it and tweaking things and obsessing over details and stuff like that. So it's a whole process, but it's a fun one. Okay, and this is what I was talking about before, how on the mask itself, this area is just flat because obviously it's a mask and someone has to wear it. But I think I'm going to allow this area under the zygomatic arch of that's his bone sticking through right there. It wasn't obvious. I'm going to allow that to be a little darker than it is in our reference model because because I just want it to look like it has more depth to it. More depth than you would see on this sculpture. Then, know, I might even work in this. Now I'm getting crazy with it. I'm getting a little further away, but we might actually see just the tip of a jaw bone sticking through right there. I'm gonna leave that in there for right now, just as a little tidbit, but I may change my mind on that. There is, I don't know if you can tell, there is some yellow stuff that you'll see on the sculpture right there, and that's like, those are like fatty deposits, and that was the intention in the sculpture, so I do want to bring those in as well. And just like we did with the some of the deeper highlights in the eye socket there, I'm doing the same thing. This is just a quick gray mixed together with mostly cobalt blue, titanium white, and a tad bit of the iron oxide red. And that just gives us those gray colors, which gives us a little bit of highlight for the shadows without going too crazy with it. And this is just, again, we have our base laid down in there of the titanium red, and I'm just taking a little bit of the titanium red that I mixed with, alizarin crimson that I mixed with the titanium white, and working that in. Okay. Let's see if we can fix the ear in just a second. So if you feel on your own face, yeah, that zygomatic process here comes to an end, well, right around behind the ear, so that's how you can kind of check the anatomy on that. I think we're doing okay with the angle of that, but I may end up repositioning it after I make a little firmer commitment on the shape of this ear. We'll see. Paint on the ear, on the mask itself, is a little mottled, so it's at least from where I'm sitting, it's kind of hard to make out the specific details, but that's okay. Just get it in there roughly, at least, so it looks like an actual ear, and then the viewer's eye or viewer's mind will do the rest and fill in all the details and my shortcomings. Okay. And you know, this I did on the sculpture as well, and I'm going to incorporate it in here a little bit too. I'm just going to take I take a little bit of the iron oxide red, you add a little bit of titanium white to it. It's going to make a nice warm kind of peachy color, and I'm just going to tap in a little bit of this into the top part of the ear, right here and down here, almost like, because I know I'm going to put a light source behind it, and I want kind of to sell the translucency of or the, you know, the thinner parts of the ear a bit. So, you know, with that ear's not doing it for me. I'm going to fix some of the shapes here. ear really should come up a bit more. See, this is what happens when I'm painting hair around the ear. I should have just done the ear, got that out of the way, and then worried about the hair. But I jumped the gun. Did the hair first. So is what it is. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back in and fix the hair around there, but that's all right because the hair is pretty much bullshit right now anyway. So that's fine. That's fine. Okay. That's, again, just covering up the part I haven't worked out yet. All right, cool. Let's move on and go below the nose. Come in just a little bit, actually get a little side light coming in on the skin here. And this is just the base green color that I mixed up with a little bit of titanium white added in. Just using that to give us some dimensionality here. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Just that, I think that bold highlight helps it pop a bit better. Let's saw that. Mixing in some yellow with a green and a bit of titanium white. Just get a little lighter color and just lighten up some of this. Again, we're just trying to shape it a bit more than it is. Okay, all right, let's see. Let's mix up some yellow with some titanium white. And I'll throw some liquid into the mix and thin that out. And we're going to yellow up these chompers. Oh man, there is this, yeah, I'm being sloppy, but you know, we'll fix the slop in just a second. There's a documentary series on Max right now called The Mortician. And it's all about this guy that ran this funeral home, and it's like a family funeral home, and he was in charge of, his family put him in charge of the crematory, and he just did some really nefarious shit. But one of the things he would do is he would take all the gold teeth out of the corpses before he put them in the incinerator, and he would call it popping chops, and for some reason that just struck me as so fucked up that it was amusing. And now anytime I'm painting teeth, I just think about popping chops. Seriously, it is a good documentary, well worth watching. And I was, if you don't know, my wife used to be a mortician, and one of her teachers at the mortuary school that she went to is in the documentary, so she got a kick out of seeing her teacher. All right, now as much as I was trying to stick to just the one brush, I gotta go in with a smaller brush just to fix this gum line that I have just destroyed with my sloppy tooth white. On the mask itself, I went pretty dark with these gums. They're almost black. It's probably, I mean, there probably is some actual black in there too. So I'm not using a true black, just going with the black I mixed up. But yeah, I do want to have some sense of depth in the mouth there, so I am gonna go dark with that. In between. And then you'll see too on the mask there's like blood that's coming out in between his teeth. I'm going to save that detail for a future session after this layer of paint has dried. So okay, I mean it's already looking better, but as you may be able to tell, the teeth still look pretty flat. So once I get this gum line drawn back in, I'm going to try to give them a little more dimensionality. Is that the word? I don't know, man. Words are hard. Okay, yeah, those are pretty bold. So, yeah, it's so wet with paint right now. Like these, I don't know if you can tell, but like that's just like super wet. There's a whole bunch of colors stacked on top of each other, and I want to round off those teeth a bit, but I'm also in danger of just creating mud with the paint. So I'm gonna try it on part of the teeth, and if it ends up just turning to mud, I'll abandon this endeavor for a future session. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, unfortunately, I still want to fix those teeth, but I'm just going to get a better result if I let that dry first. So we're stuck with shitty teeth for this evening, but to be corrected later on this week or the next. And then I'm just adding more crimson back into his gum line here. Careful to not get blood on the teeth if I can help it. And again, this is just thinned out pretty good with the liquid. And this drip right here, I'm gonna not make that bold yet until we look at the skin tone. So that's a detail forthcoming in a future session. Okay. All right. Time to check in with the chat, see how you guys are doing. Again, periodically making sure I haven't lost everybody. All right. Hey, still 11 people watching. Right on, right on. Okay. Let's see, Donna says, fatty deposits just gave me PTSD. I went back to the time I was at an event and suddenly I was like, oh, this just made me feel nauseous. That's when I was in the core wasn't my thing. Oh, nice.
Undead of Night, watched the Mortician doc. The mom was a piece of work. Interesting to see the Augustine guy on there. He was a bodyguard for Kiss. Ah, nice. Cool, awesome. Well, yeah, thank you guys for participating in the chat. I'm glad you guys are keeping the conversation going. I know I'm usually more active, but I'm just more stuck on the painting today. But anyway, going. Also, I'm noticing now that I'm looking in here. There's a big glare on the head. If I tilt this down a bit, you can see that a lot of that is looking a lot brighter on the main image is actually darker than it seems in the stream. See, that's just hitting the glare. So there is more contrast when you look at it straight on, but that's just hazards of the live stream. All right, let's get back to it here. Okay. Dang, we are pushing 3 hours. I'm going to try to just get the neck and the eye and then this chin in a good enough spot to where I feel comfortable calling it a day, just so you guys can go to sleep, because I know, for those of you on the East Coast, it's getting pretty late. So let's just get this in a good enough spot to hit a stopping point. And this is just that grayish color I mixed up with cobalt blue, just throwing that right on top there. I'll try to speed it up. The time had gotten away from me. Okay. Yeah, an interesting thing here is I'm seeing a lot of the green reflect back onto this eyeball here. It's bouncing, the green's kind of bouncing off of it. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of that green in, just a very thin, mostly liquid coat of the green in there. And then I'm going to take that titanium white and mix it in with just a touch of the cobalt blue. And that's going to be our next layer on the eyeball. And just with a real light touch. I'm endeavoring to have a little bit of a gradient happen and work a little bit of the green back in below. And then kind of still with the cobalt blue in there a bit, but go a little lighter and just give us a little bit of a brighter spot there. And then obviously the blood and the vein work's going to overlap that, but I've got to let that layer dry before we get too bloody with that. So again, I am just going to do a quick recap because I know people have come in and out of the stream. So for those of you who weren't in earlier and who are kind of late to the stream, this is an event I do every 2 weeks. It's every other Thursday at 7 p.m. So 2 weeks from now will be the next one. And I encourage everybody who's watching at home to make some art while they watch, if that's your thing, or you can just watch. But if you do end up making some art and you would like to showcase it to the viewers of the stream, email me what you create at my email address is clintcarneycreates@gmail.com. It's real easy to remember. It's the name of this YouTube channel, clintcarneycreates@gmail.com. So send me what you make, and if you have any social media links you want to share, please feel free to send those too. And then on the next stream, which will be 2 weeks from today,
I will share the work of everyone who emailed me their submissions. It's always fun to see what other people are working on at the same time, because we're all here together just making art, but no two of us are making the same thing. And also, at least so far in this stream, you know, most of you fine folks who are watching, who are making art at home, are making, you know, pretty beautiful pieces, which is surprising to me then that you would want to watch me make all this weird, gross stuff. But I appreciate that you do. That's one thing with the old YouTube algorithm. When you paint something kind of graphic, like this painting is going to be and is already, it's not gonna get as many views in the long run, because I think they don't want to show you know, graphic content to the you know, advertisers, you know, don't want to show graphic content on things that they're advertising. So consequently, when I decide to do a graphic painting like this, you know, making the conscious decision that it's not going to be seen by as many people. But you know, I love painting crazy stuff like this, so can't let the algorithm win every time. Sometimes you just got to paint what you want, right? And this is just that phthalo blue, this darker green here. That's, or phthalo green rather. That's coming in for the shadows. You know what would be awesome is if YouTube had a feature that would like read the chat out loud, so I could just hear what you guys are chatting while I'm painting without having to interrupt. Someone should, there's got to be a program out there that does that already, but that would be super cool. While I'm just rambling, since I'm not don't have anything better to do, I'm in the middle of reading the new Stephen King book, which is pretty good so far. It's called Never Flinch. Yeah, so if any of you are Stephen King fans out there, and it's another one that has the character Holly Gibney in it. If you read Stephen King, you know who that is. If you've been reading him in recent years, at least, she's a reoccurring character that started in the book The Outsider, I believe, and then has carried on and has now been in about 5 or 6 books. She's a private investigator. But it's another, like, I won't do any spoilers or whatever, but it's another kind of like crime type book. Not a lot, not really any supernatural elements to it thus far, but you know, with Stephen King, that sort of thing might pop up at any time. So early stages on it, but yeah, pretty good so far. I enjoy it. You know, he's one of those authors that even on his worst day, he's still better than most authors out there, just for my taste, just in terms of how he writes and his use of the language. I am quite a fan of his. And if anyone, I know it seems like less and less people read these days, which is a shame. But if anyone watching is a reader, Stephen King's son, who writes under the name Joe Hill, is actually quite a wonderful writer as well. And if you like Stephen King's stuff, I think you'll also like Joe Hill. I mean, it is distinctly different, but you can clearly see some of the influence of his father in there. And he just, it almost feels like a more modern version of his father, which I guess is technically what's happening there. But so he'll cover themes and stuff that his dad wouldn't. But really solid. I've read all of his books so far, and they've all been really good for my taste. But then I will also say that I've recommended his books to other people, and they were like, "Why the fuck did you recommend that to me?" I guess maybe unlike his dad, maybe he tends a little more toward the nihilistic sometimes. I don't know. I enjoy his work a lot, though. So check him out, Joe Hill. Also, random bit of trivia, if you guys have seen the movie Creepshow, not talking about the TV show, but the original George Romero film, the wraparound story in that where the kid has the voodoo doll, that kid is Joe Hill as a kid. Because, of course, Creepshow was written by Stephen King, so there's the connection. But Joe Hill also has a new book coming out this year, I think in the fall. I can't remember the name of it, but I have already pre-ordered it because he has now fallen into that category of if he writes any book, I will read it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is almost as far as I'm going to get here. It's just kind of sticky and saturated. But before we call it a night, I am going to go bold here and throw a layer of cadmium red deep hue over the shirt, because I know I want that kind of really bright, fun red on that. So, if I can find, here we go, cadmium red, deep hue. The tube itself looks like it would be pretty close to a crimson, but it is not. It is very vibrant. And then I'm also going to squeeze out a little bit of the light hue, which is a lot more, it's more of an orange red, and I'm just going to hit a few areas with that. And then we're going to call it on this for the night to resume later. I'm just going to mix in some liquid with my reds here, and then we're going to go crazy. Now, the one thing about these CAD reds is if you go too thick with them, they will take forever to dry. It is a very slow drying pigment, so the color looks fantastic, but yeah, just to be aware of that. If you have to go bold and thick with these cadmium reds, you're in for some dry time. So again, just layering right now, just layering our glazing So I'm starting out up top here with the light hue, so cadmium red light. And then we'll just go bold. This is the dark hue right underneath it. Probably on the live stream, especially because I'm painting in very thin layers, it's probably incredibly difficult to see the difference between these two, but if I were to paint thicker, you would certainly see it, at least in person. Maybe not on camera. I see it. Here, I'll put in a little sticker on the light hue so you can see right there, right? See the difference between that and that? There we go. Well, look at that. That's what I wanted. Again, the original resin sculpture of this before I turned them into a latex mask was just have this bright red hoodie on, and it really popped nicely against the green of the skin. So I wanted to honor that original version by putting them in an obnoxiously red t-shirt. And I'm just laying down the color. Obviously, this is very flat, just like that, but we're going to add in some more as we go into different layers. I might even throw a little bit of cobalt blue in the mix just to shape it a bit, but I'm not going to get too crazy with shaping it right now, just to make a couple bold choices and live with them. There we go. Boom. Okay. There we go. So, let's see. Just catch up on the chat real quick. Oh, Jennifer has bought Never Flinch. It's cool. You'll dig it. Okay, let's take a look at what we've done. I'm going to angle it again so you can see a little bit better without so much glare. So yeah, making progress. Still a lot of work to go, but what I'm liking about this one right now is just how vivid the colors are. I mean, look at how much this is popping already. Like, for what I wanted to do with this, just kind of like a fun illustrative style mask catalog kind of showcase of this mask. It's looking really fun so far. So lots of details to go. Many hours left. We're 3 hours deep on it so far. I probably will spend, I mean, depending on what I do in the background, at least another 3 hours on it. It might end up going more than that. Maybe it's another 5 or 6 hours. I don't really know until I commit to what the rest of the background is going to be, and then how much I want to just really get in there and work the details. So let me real quick, I'm just going to, so this is the painting we did at the last art autopsy. Again, this is just for people who are coming late or who are new to the stream. So this is the one we did at the last art autopsy, just to contrast, you know, between the two. This is obviously a more complex scene. I just like doing something different every time. So you tune in every 2 weeks. You never know what you're going to get, right? We're always going to do something fun. And yeah, anyway, I just really appreciate you guys tuning in and joining me. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks. If you sign up for my Patreon, even if you can't afford the monthly, I do also have a free tier, and that still, even the free tier gives you the updates on like the live events and stuff like that. So I recommend signing up over there. And let's see, got some more chats coming in here. Let's see. Oh, that red shirt might be a deal breaker for most of my students, but wow, without the glare, it is fun. Not gross enough yet, I'm sure. Cool. Thanks. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care.